Travis. I'm the host of Oscar Mike Radio. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hoobazoo Network. You can find out more on hoobazoo.com. And we're rolling right through January. We're starting off the new year with a bang, and I've got a new kind of story to talk about today. I am with Navy Chief retired Paul Freeman, author, and just all around, awesome guy that I met through the Scuttlebutt Podcast. Mr. Freeman, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Yeah, hey Travis, thank you, and thank you, Oscar Mike Radio, for having me today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure. Commander Fleek and Andrew Farr of TSP-The Scuttlebutt, told me all about you, and we got connected, and I'm like, man, this is a very interesting thing. And then, as we started talking, we'll get into it later. We talk about the book you wrote and then the veterans you support. But, for my, listeners and watchers and viewers out there, kind of just tell us a story of your naval career.
Okay. I grew up in Chicago, the north side, about 7 miles from Wrigley Field. So go Cubs for starters. Okay. And my grandpa lived with us up in the top level of the house, and he was a Navy guy. And my senior year of high school, I'm not kidding you, he had this big Navy ring on his finger. And I would go upstairs and talk to him. He had a little round table, and he'd have his whiskey, his Pall Mall cigarette, and that Navy ring. And he would talk to me. He goes, "What are you going to do after high school?" I said, "I'm going to UTEP. I'm going to go play football." He goes, "No. You're not going. You're not going." I go, "What do you mean? No." I go, "That's where my friends are going. We're going to UTEP." He goes, "No, you're going in the Navy." And I said, "The Navy?" He goes, "Yeah, you can get your college done in the Navy. Go talk to the recruiter." I says, "Well, I'll think about it." He goes, "No, go talk to that recruiter." So as he's speaking to me, Travis, that Navy ring would be making he would be clinking it off his little round table when he's drinking his whiskey. So I went down to the recruiter and I talked to him, and 1984, 6 days after high school, I went to boot camp at Great Lakes, and then I found myself on the USS Carl Vinson. I met it in Yokosuka, Japan, and boy, I'll tell you what, that was the first time a nuclear aircraft carrier had pulled in to pier side in Japan since Hiroshima, apparently. Well, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because there was riot buses out there, and I'm like, in this big city, metropolis ship pulls up to the pier, and I'm looking up at it, and I go, where I'm going to be living for 4 years, So anyways, got on board the ship, checked into my shop. I was a catapult operator at the time, launched the ones that launched airplanes off the ship.
Yep.
So I went to joined into my crew and all that, and then after about a year or two, I got recruited to go work up in the tower, up in the aircraft carrier, the very top, which is it's like an air traffic control center, and that was a great job. I made E5 at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, so I made E5. I eventually worked myself up to be the tower supervisor for the Carl Vinson at the time. And shortly after that, I took orders to go shore base. The Carl Vinson was based out of Alameda. And I said, well, after 3 cruises and 4 years out at sea, let me try this shore duty thing in the Navy and see if I still like it. So I went to shore duty. And after about 2 years of that, there was an A6 squadron on the base there, and I had transferred over to the A6 squadron. Did 4 years over there, made E6, just different jobs that I did in the squadron unit. And they were the Firebirds, VA 304 Firebirds, A6s out of NES Alameda. So then after that, they started decommissioning bases during the Clinton era. And yep. So lo and behold, Naval Air Station Alameda is on the list to get cut. So they shoved a bunch of us off across the bay in San Francisco to Moffett Field. And then at Moffett Field, I was supposed to do 4 years there. And it's kind of like a component repair level duty. You tear down the engines and you put them back up and all that. And I was used to being by the jets up on the flight deck, doing all that. So I screamed and hollered and said, I want out of here. I want to go F-18s. I don't care where, but send me to F-18s somewhere. Well, and they said, well, you still got 2 more years here. And I go, no, I want to do an early transfer. I'm out of here. So anyways, after wanking a lot to the Master Chief, the E9, he let me go. So I went to an F-18 squadron in Texas, which actually at the time was an F-14 squadron. So now I'm entering into the arena of the book, which is the Hunters of Texas, which is
legendary Hunters of Texas.
Yes, the legendary Hunters of Texas. So I showed up at this unit in Texas. I was I made chief at this point.
Okay.
I showed up at the squadron, and we had F-14 Tomcats at the time. Well, I got sent there to transition the squadron over to F-18s. So while I left California, I went to F-18 system school, so that I would have that done ahead of time. So I reported to the squadron in Fort Worth, and it was Tomcats at the time. And the Tomcat people really didn't, I don't know how much they liked me or not. They put me in quality control, and they go, this is the guy that's transitioned us from F-14s to F-18s next year. Ooh, you know, so anyways, I had a file cabinet as my desk in the F-14 quality control office. They gave me a file cabinet. And so I put my books and my work up there. And I remember the quality control senior chief at the time, the guys were going out on deployment for 2 weeks. He goes, hey, while they're gone, I want you to take this office and turn it into F-18 office. I go, okay. He goes, put there's 6 programs in a basic 6 programs in a fighter squadron in the Navy that we have to manage in QC, quality control. So anyways, he goes, do what you got to do. I said, okay. So when everybody came back from the deployment, there was 6 white binders on every inspector's desk. They're all looking at me like, what the hell is this? I said, well, that is the 6 programs that we're going to manage the F-18s with. Well, we're still Tomcats. What the hell? So it was a big ruckus. But I did what the senior chief told me, the E8, you know. Anyways, so we were letting go of the F-14s, and we were going to get the F-18s at that time. And
now just real quick for people who may not understand, you know, naval or military aviation, how big of a jump was the F-18 over the F-14? Because even to this day, I talked to some naval aviators who liked the Tomcat platform. It carried a lot of ordnance, very fast, and was mechanically, you know, they liked it.
So let me break it down like this. Maybe this will. So the F-14 can carry the Phoenix missile. It could carry a few of them, and it could track targets 100 miles away basically, and launch this Phoenix missile off of the Tomcat and hit its target unseen from 100 miles away. Whatever. People can Google it if they want the exact details. Yeah. So the F-14 it's a big platform. It's a big airplane. Okay. And it's an old product. It's all it's not like the F-18 was quick disconnect and modular in design, and I'll get to that in a second. Whereas the Tomcat was nuts and bolts, safety wire. It was a mechanical airplane. So for an example, an F-14, to remove an engine out of an F-14 would take 4 hours. Four guys, 4 man hours. And that's because everything was mechanical. There was a lot of connections and all that. The F-18 would take 1 hour to pull an engine out. Because it was only a couple things that were connected to the nacelle, the middle of the airplane between both engines. So you can quick disconnect things really quick, and you can get this engine out of the bay really quick in an hour. So a stat I'll give you. So as an aircraft maintenance chief, we used to track maintenance hours to flight hours, okay? And on the F-14, it was 70 maintenance hours to 1 flight hour, approximately. So that's a lot of maintenance hours for one flight, one hour of flight. On the F-18, when we transitioned and we got the F-18, we were seeing 25 maintenance hours to 1 flight hour, which is a big difference because you can keep the F-18s on the schedule a lot easier than you could the F-14s, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And in my understanding too, because, we used to practice shooting them down, the F-18s, they were more nimble than the F-14. Not the F-14. The F-14 had speed and vertical thrust and all that stuff, but the F-18 had a higher turn rate.
Yeah, I can explain that. So just an avionics thing real quick. The F-14 had a better radar than the F-18. It could do more. It was a more powerful radar than the F-18 by far. But the let me see here. What can I talk to you about on that? But like I was saying, the F-18. I lost my train of thought here. Sorry.
Just the radar between the 18 and the 14.
Yeah. So the radar in the Hornet was not as strong. But okay, so the Tomcat is known for Top Gun. So the aircraft we're talking about, folks, is the one that was in Top Gun. It's a big airplane. It's complicated. The wing swept design system for maintenance, folks, is really complicated. And typically it leaks. Just being on the flight line, it'll leak. It's crazy. And to close the doors underneath the jet, you literally have to kind of shake the airplane because the plane flexes. It's so big. To get the door shut on the belly, you have to flex the airplane. It's nuts. But so the F-18, so the reason why the F-18 can sit and pivot up in the air at 60 knots and it can just kind of hover basically, and the pilots can put the nose on the target and just sit up there, is because they got these things called air data computers. And these air data computers tie into the flight control computers, and they will keep the flight controls moving in such a manner that the airplane won't stall, won't fall out of the sky. And so that's the advance on the F-18. It's a very, it may not be like as fast or climb rate as quick as a Tomcat, but from a mission standpoint, they can really turn on a dime, and that's because of their flight control computers and these air data computers that keep those flight controls moving and so forth. A Tomcat needs a lot of speed. It's a big airplane. It's inherently a negative stable aircraft. So what I mean is, at a slower airspeed, the Tomcat, because of its design, it's made for speed. It's not made for slow flight. So the airplane becomes unstable coming into the carrier. It's the pilots will tell you that they're taking the stick and the throttle, they're doing this the whole time, trying to keep that plane, that Tomcat, coming in at a slow flight with a lot of drag, flaps down and the gears down and all that. You'll see it rocking as it's coming in on final. Yeah. And it's just because it's inherently a negative platform. The Hornet, from talking to the pilots that flew that in my unit, it was a more stable airplane. The Hornet, they said, was very easy to fly, but the demand, the cockpit workload, Travis, for the missions and the programming and all the stuff they got to do was very intense and labor intensive for the F-18 pilots. The Hornet, the Tomcats, well, at least the Tomcat had a guy behind him in the reel in the back seat that can help him out. But on the Hornet, even though it was, they said that the aircraft was made easy to fly, so the pilots can focus more on the mission and their missiles and their loadex, what they got to do for that mission. So they made the plane very easy to fly.
So it was an easier platform to fly. And, I understood this, several Marine Corps units told me that, over time that they got the maintenance down on it and they could keep it in the air for a long time. It was just always an interesting aircraft to me because it never got the popularity of like the F-16 or the sexiness of the F-15 or the standout F-14, but it's been a major player in our arsenal for almost 3 decades, more if you count development time. So the boys go on afloat and they come back to all this new stuff you set up. What was it like watching them transfer from, because like we were talking before, is a lot of people tell me, well, what's the big deal with the F-35 or the whatever? It's like driving a car, right? You're going from a Ford pickup truck to a Dodge. It's no big deal, but that's not the case, is it?
No, it's not the case at all. So we had 1 year. We were allowed 1 year to transition from the F-14 to the F-18. And in that 1 year, we were transferring F-14 folks out, and we were bringing in folks from other F-18 units to come into the squadron. And what we did is, see, when you transition from one platform to another in a squadron, there is so much training that has to be done. The maintenance crews have to be trained. The equipment, the support equipment is different that you have to use to maintain the airplane and fix it. The maintenance manuals are different. Everything is different. And so what you have to do is you have to take people that are like subject matter experts on the F-18 and get them into your unit. So now we can set up scheduled training for our maintenance folks. The pilots will be in the sims and the simulators and doing all that kind of stuff and doing their training. But it took us it was a year process. So we transferred 12 F-14s out, and we took in 12 F-18s. So when you bring a plane in, you have to do an acceptance inspection. You have to look at the logbooks, the paperwork. You got to get into our computer tracking system. The airplane has to pass a series of functional check flights before we put it on the flight schedule, and so it was a whole year process. It's not like you can just flick a switch or you drive a Mustang and your buddy drives a Camaro and he loans you the Camaro. You can just jump in the Camaro and go. You can't do that in a fighter fighter squadron.
Yeah.
It's completely different, and the Navy has requirements for fighter squadrons to have documented training, have gone through the system school. So you have the training at the unit, but then you have people that you have to send off to formalize training in school centers to get trained on the systems as well. So it's not an easy undertaking. It's labor intensive, and about a year before we actually start getting deployable type thing.
So you're doing all this, and ladies and gentlemen, the book we're talking about is The Legendary Hunters of Texas. You can find it on Amazon and Kindle in paperback format. I'm with Paul Freeman, Chief Petty Officer for the Navy, who was a part of that unit. What makes the Hunters of Texas so special? Because he wrote a book about this, folks. Right.
So the Hunters go back. They started with F-8s, F-4s, F-14s, F-18s, and what makes the unit special is we were our normal non-combat mission was to go do adversarial flights over in the Key West, and our pilots were all Top Gun rated pilots at one point in their career on active duty. So our pilots in our unit were all F-8 or all Tomcat or all Top Gun pilots, and our job was to go to Key West and take the Nugget pilots, the kids basically flying the F-18s. Yeah, kids. It's crazy. 25, 26 years old with an F-18 strapped to them or whatever. But they would launch out of Oceana, and we would meet the Nuggets, we call them, in Key West. And our pilots were senior pilots. They were 05s, 06s, 04s, and they had all the experience from when they were on active duty. And they also were the Top Gun folks that came out of Miramar, real Top Gun pilots. And our guys would fight against their guys, dogfight out in Key West, and for 2 weeks at a time. And it was part of the Nuggets to get their curriculums going and signed off so that they can fly the airplane in a combat arena and ACM type situations. And our pilots would beat them up for the first couple days on these trips. And then towards the end, they would start catching on to our senior pilots. And so that's what we did. But what makes the squadron unique is in 2000, after 9/11 hit, we were kind of sitting around and we were still doing these adversarial missions out of Key West from Fort Worth there. And I'm at home one day, and I was the night shift maintenance chief for my last 3 years in the Navy at that squadron. And I'm sitting at home and I'm getting ready to go, and I get a phone call from my boss at the squadron. And I'm like, well, why is he calling me? I'm going to see him in an hour. And he said, hey, when you get here, we got some stuff has gone down, and just be prepared. I didn't ask any questions because I'm like, okay, because I'm trying to maintain some sort of phone call discipline here because we are military folks. I said, all right, I'll see you there. I'm on my way. And I get there and I meet up with my E8. There's an E8 over me in maintenance control, I was the maintenance chief, and he kind of sat in the back and oversaw other things while I ran the squadron and got the jets on the schedule and all that stuff. And he goes, hey, we're getting mobilized. I go, we're getting mobilized? I go, for what? We're going to get mobilized with Carrier Air Wing 8. So Carrier Air Wing 8, Travis, is off the East Coast, and they're an active duty carrier air wing. And they had an issue with one of their F-18 squadrons where they were in heavy maintenance type of, they weren't going to be ready for deployment. And so apparently we got picked, our reserve squadron, Fort Worth, to fill that hole for Carrier Air Wing 8 to go on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt and go do live combat. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. He goes, no, we're getting mobilized. We're going active duty full. We're mobilizing the reserves, which makes up about, in our unit, we were an active duty training squadron. So that means 40% of us out of the total manpower in that unit on a typical day, non-combat, 40% of us were active duty. The other 60% of the squadron would encompass reserves. And so our job was to train the reserves, keep them current, the pilots and the maintenance folks. They're week in a month or 2 weeks a year. And so that's what we did until we got mobilized. And I said, I can't believe this. Yeah, we're getting mobilized with Carrier Wing 8, and we're going over. We're going to go see some action. I said, oh, damn, okay. So we took our F-18s, and in 1 week, we took 12 F-18s and we transferred them out, and we got the more updated F-18s into our squadron. So we got 12 modified, more up-to-date F-18s, so we could take them on the Roosevelt and join Carrier Wing 8 to go do shock and awe airstrikes. And so the significance is we were the first reserve fighter squadron in Navy history to actually get into combat, do combat. There was other squadrons throughout the Navy's history of aviation that were mobilized, but none of them actually did combat, as far as I know. So at the time, I didn't know we were making history until, if I can move forward a little bit.
Sure.
So we're up in we're off the coast. So now we're on the Roosevelt. We're steaming across the Atlantic with this Carrier Air Wing, active duty air wing, comes as Tomcats, F-18s, and now we're one of them. And we park ourselves off the coast of Syria, and we did the shock and awe airstrikes off the coast of Syria, off the Roosevelt, during OIF, the kickoff. And it was back then they had it on TV and they were showing what we were doing and all that. Our main mission was to take out the comm centers and the runways to basically destroy northern Iraq's infrastructure. So we were out there for about 2 weeks. We were bombing when we got the word on March, I think 19. I think it was March 19. And we had all our jets ready to go. We got the word, hey, we're launching now, we're going. Shock and awe is now beginning. So here we are as a reserve squadron, right? We're on this USS Theodore Roosevelt off the coast of Syria during an OIF, and we're doing live combat missions in the northern Iraq. That's not been done in naval aviation fighter history, period. We're the first ones to do it. Anyways, being I was aircraft maintenance chief, I never thought in my wildest dreams, since I was on an active duty reserve squadron, I never thought I would have gone to a combat deployment at that point in my career, because I was about 3 years out from retiring, and I'm like, did it, done it, been on the USS John F. Kennedy, the USS Carl Vinson, and now I'm on the Theodore Roosevelt. I'm like, I'm not going to see combat. And sure as heck, man, I'm out there and I'm the aircraft maintenance chief for the one shift out there. We're launching F-18s in the live combat. We're in a combat zone. I never thought that was going to happen. So that was the significance. I thought that was pretty damn cool. We made history. If I can move a little forward, I retired in 2004, and this is the segue that got me into the book part. In 2004, I retired, got into the civilian market, and doing my aviation jobs and all that. And 2007, they closed our F-18 squadron down in Fort Worth, Texas. They decommissioned the unit, they closed it down. And we're all looking at each other like, why would you close a proven fighter squadron, a reserve fighter squad? Why would you close them down? They've been proven that they can actually do combat and come back, and they were successful. So anyways, they closed. I flew in from California. I was out there at that time, 2007, and I went to the decommissioning ceremony. Years later, I'm sitting at home and I'm on Facebook, and I'm hearing about this 22 kill push-up challenge. And I'm going, what's this all about? And it's like the 22 kill program is basically, which you know about it, maybe the audience doesn't, but it represents 22 veterans committing suicide daily from PTSD. So back then they had a push-up challenge, and I got called out on Facebook to do this push-up challenge for 22 days. So on the 22nd day, in I guess 2016 or so, I go out to the I go out to my old base here in Fort Worth, and we have a static display F-18 out there. And I'm like, the 22nd day, I'm going to do it underneath the nose of our F-18 outside the front gate of the base. So I'm out there and I do the push-ups. I get on the video, and I call out somebody to continue the program and challenge them to do 22 push-ups for 22 days. And I go on base, and I go back to where our squadron hangar was, and everything is gone. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, Travis. I'm like, we were the only naval aviation fighter squadron to go into combat in Navy history, and there's nothing. Our story's not captured. What's going on here? So I get on my squadron's Facebook page that night. I go, hey guys, anybody been out to our old squadron lately? It's gone. I go, all that history's gone. So, my sailors are sitting on there and they're going, hey, Chief, write a book. I go, write a book about what? About what we did, our mission, our history. And I'm thinking to myself, because I was driven during the 22 push-up challenge for 22 kill. I enjoyed spreading the word about, hey, the PTSD, that's a real issue. And I know friends that have serious struggles with PTS and that during that time and now the current daytime. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you guys what, I'm gonna do a documentary on our unit from the F8 era to the F4s, to the F14s, to the F18s. And then what I'm gonna do, since I'm done with the 22 kill push-up program, I didn't have a stage to promote and make folks aware of what's going on with PTSD. I said, I'll write the book and I'll donate everything back to the 22 kill program and contribute that way. And I go, as hunters of our squadron, our unit name, I go, we'll still make a difference, even though we're closed down and we've been decommissioned. I go, so it's twofold. I'll write the book, I'll create donations through my book sales. And what I'll do is we'll also have a mechanism to talk about PTSD still. So I wrote the book, it got published, and I was like, check this out. Okay, now I got a stack of books at the house, and I'm like, well, I guess I gotta sell these things, you know. And I'm like, how am I gonna do that? So I started thinking, talking to some of my buddies, and so I started doing air shows.
Oh, nice.
Huh?
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, so I started doing book signings at air shows, and I'll get to some other things here in a second, but to digress a little bit. So during the book, at my booth at these air shows, signing books, and I have my mission statement up there of why I'm doing it. I got very humbled in the sense of, I'm sitting here, I got these little paperback books, I'm selling for $15 a piece. I'm trying to get donations. And then when I do, I'll transfer the money from my account to 22 Kill and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. What would happen is I'm sitting at the booth, this little book table I would set up at these air shows. I'd be signing the books, and I'll tell you a quick story here. I'm signing a book to somebody, my head is down, and I sign it and I hand it to the individual, and I look to my left, and there's a young lady standing there in front of me, and she's crying. And I look at her and I go, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Yeah." She's crying, and she goes, "I know who you are. I know what you're doing with your book. You're creating this money to give to 22 Kill for PTSD." And as she's telling me this, she's still crying. And I stand up, and she goes, "My uncle committed suicide last week, and he had PTSD, and he wouldn't get any help." And I got up. I had some of my squadron mates there with me at the book signing, and everybody got quiet. I got up, and I hugged her. I cried with her. So I sat back down, and she had given me the money for the book. And as she was giving me the money, she goes, "I have another family member who was a Vietnam veteran." And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, he's an alcoholic, and he talks about committing suicide because he can't deal with what he dealt with in Vietnam." So I'm wiping tears from my eyes because I'm having this moment that I didn't expect. And so I grab another book, and I sign it, and I hand it to her, and she goes, "I don't have no more money. I can't buy another book." I go, "Take this book. This book is to your family member. My phone number is in there. If they feel like they want to talk to somebody, please tell them to call me." And then she started crying again. And what I'm getting at is, when you're out there and you put yourself out there, you never know what you're going to come across or what you
Absolutely.
get.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know? And I just wanted to share one story.
Sure.
As yourself and me, guys that are out there trying to help our fellow vets. I have many stories like that. So, anyways, so I'm at these air shows, Travis. We meet all kinds of people, you know, and these book signings. And I'm sitting here one day, and this lady comes over to me. She goes, "I read your mission statement." She goes, "Can I get a book from you?" I said, "Sure." I go, and I'm pulling the book down. I go, "Yeah, who would you like me to sign it to?" And she goes, to Gary Sinise. And I look up at her, and "Gary Sinise?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm his promoter." And I went, "What?" I go, "You're telling me right now, if I sign this book to Gary Sinise, you're going to give it to him?" She goes, "Yeah, of course I am." She goes, "Are you guys going to the Snowball Express, DFW?" And I said, "No, I don't have tickets." And my wife was sitting next to me, and she goes, "You two meet me after the air show, and I'm going to give you tickets. You're going to be my guest." And I went, "Okay." I'm starting to, you know, I'm thinking maybe this lady really is who she says she is, you know.
Right. You never know, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm like, okay, we're going to meet her at a gas station outside Alliance Airport, and she's supposed to give us some tickets. Okay, sounds good. So we leave. We go to we meet her at this gas station, and it wasn't Buc-ee's, because if it was Buc-ee's, we would have done some shopping. It was at another gas station. But anyway, so she walks up. She gets out of her car, and she's walking towards us, and she has the book in her hand that I gave her to give to Gary, his niece. And she hands me 2 tickets, and she hands me the book back. I go, why are you handing me the book back? I thought you were giving that to Gary's niece. And she goes, I just got off the phone with him, and he wants you to give him the book. I'm like, okay, this is real. I'm like, this is real. I said, okay. So a month or 2 later, Travis, we show up and at American Airlines hangar where Gary Sinise was, and the Lieutenant Dan band was doing their Snowball Express, their concerts and all that. And I'm sitting next to the promoter, and during the concert, she's like, okay, get ready. I go, get ready for what? She was going up on stage. Okay. I'm like, hey, I'm telling my wife, hey, babe, I think I'm going up on stage here. I don't know. Anyways, a long story short, didn't happen, but we met him at his bus after the concert. And for me, what an opportunity. What an opportunity for me to stand across him and thank him from all of us, for what he does. I says, you just did a 3-hour concert and you're taking time to talk to me. I go, I'm just small time. He goes, no. He goes, Paul, he goes, it all counts. Everybody that's helping, it all matters. It doesn't matter if it's a small scale or big scale. And anyways, at that point, I said, babe, we're donating money to Gary Sinise too now, his foundation. I said, that guy is the bomb, nicest guy in the world. And anyways, so that's kind of how we got to the book and some of the things that we've done since the book has been published, and doing my my signings. Because I other than Amazon, Travis, and Kindle, I put myself out there to try and move the book and at least try and create some sales, create a couple $100 and send it off, that's kind of how I got to, that's from my military to the book to what the mission is of the book.
Well, I mean, it's good to talk with you because that comes out in the book, right? This storied unit in Texas is decommissioned with little fanfare that serves so distinctly, right? And then, what you're doing with this, you're not just, telling the story for all the sailors and shipmates and the aviators who served in this unit. You're educating other people who don't know much about this kind of thing. You're taking what you get from this book and giving back to other veterans so they can continue to enjoy the life they have. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we want to see from all veterans, and you're doing it. I guess I would ask, as we kind of get near to closing this down, is question one: how do people buy the book? I have the Amazon link. Is that the best place to go? Absolutely.
Yeah, Amazon is the best place. And then it's word of mouth, or it's through Facebook. People can reach out. I'm on Facebook, and I have a page, the Legendary Hunters of Texas. There is a Facebook page. They can look me up through. I've been using Facebook because I don't have any like a staff to support me here.
Sure.
So I'm using social media to promote the book, to sell it, and try and collect some proceeds to donate. So Amazon is the main, Amazon.com, and it's in Kindle form as well. And they can also just look me up on Facebook. They can Google the Legendary Hunters of Texas, and the book's right there.
Well, I'm going to have all these links to the Facebook page and the Amazon and all that in this show post. You can purchase the book and know that the proceeds from the sale of this book is going right back into the veteran community. You're supporting a veteran who took it upon himself to do this. It's just a great story. as we move through different things, like the F-18 is being phased out and going to be replaced by the F-35, and there's going to be change there. But keeping this alive is very important, and it's just one of the best things about doing this. And I just want to thank Commander Fleek and Richard Farr for the introduction, being able to talk with you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to. At the end of the day, the whole thing is about just talking about PTSD. I mean, really is. It's not about the book, and that's the catalyst, but it's about spreading the word. Hey, there's lots of folks out there that have PTSD that many function just fine. They have coping mechanisms and then others don't. Others got it really bad. Alcoholism, drugs, and to the point where they commit suicide. But if I could just shout out to my wife, I want to thank her for all her support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, she jumps right in there whenever, and she puts up with me, and she goes, "Where are we now?" And she's right there with me. So I really appreciate that. And then my buddies from the Carl Vinson, that was the mothership. We all came in together. That was Richard Fleek, Tony Ortiz, Taco, Klinkenberg, and John Foster. These guys, all shipmates from 37 years ago. And we still talk and give each other hell. And at the end, I would like to thank all the hunters. The book is not just about the F-18 era. It's to represent all the hunters that were before me that started the unit. It's the timers to the current day F-18 guys. And I want to thank them and their support, because there's no way I could have wrote this book without those different eras helping me get some information and develop a book. So thank you, Travis, for what you do and at Oscar Mike Radio. And I really appreciate your time.
It's no problem at all. I love doing these kinds of shows and reading the story. The book is fantastic, and then hearing it from you yourself and what you're doing with it is just makes it all worth it. So again, it's called The Legendary Hunters of Texas. It's a book written by Navy Chief Paul Freeman. I have the links in the show post. He's doing great things with this book. Check it out. And once again, Paul, thank you for coming on Oscar Mike Radio.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you too. And as we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we are mission in flight. Thank you.